What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Celtics Daily with me, Mike Zakarian. And today, we're going to spend the entire episode trying to find a new home for our guy, Drew Holiday. Now, we did the exact same thing yesterday, except it was for Kristaps Porzingis, and I'm going to say the exact same thing that I said yesterday as well. And that is, if Drew Holiday, you somehow find your way to this video, I would love for you to stay with the Boston Celtics for another season, okay? If I was the owner, I would gladly spend all of those millions in luxury tax money to keep you here. But I am not in those luxury box seats. I am on YouTube. So I got to find a new spot for you, Drew, and I'm sorry. But let's get started with the Dallas Mavericks, okay? We know Dallas is willing to take some risky moves. We know they want to win now. I still remember where I was in February when the lights were dim, about to go to sleep, doing my last doom scrolls before I called it a night, and then Shams, bing, bing, we assume he got hacked as Luka goes from the Mavericks to the Lakers. Anthony Davis, who Drew Holiday once played with back in the day with the New Orleans Pelicans, he makes his way to Dallas, right? And we know Nico Harrison spent every single press conference since that Luka trade saying defense wins championships. And who better to do that than Drew Holiday? The other wrinkle with the Dallas Mavericks is Kyrie Irving is basically their only point guard. After removing Luka from the equation, they didn't get any guards back. So Kyrie is the only guy that they have. And you might remember Kyrie's ACL not intact. So he's not going to be back until January the earliest, although he did drop what can only be described as a mixtape recovery tape. So it seems like recovery is going well for Kyrie. So they are in desperate need for a guard that can play defense. Drew also, I know Drew is taking a backseat offensively, and I think that has way more to do with the way the Celtics play offense, the fact that we have two, all NBA caliber wings in Tatum and Brown. We also have other guards that can handle the ball, like White and Pritchard. So Holiday's really taking a step back, but he can still run an offense. We saw him do it with Milwaukee. We saw him do it with with the New Orleans Pelicans and Anthony Davis back in the day. So I actually do think this would legit be a decent fit for him, because right now, the only guards that they have healthy are Spencer Dinwiddie, which I'm not really thrilled about that. They have Brandon Williams, who is this young guy that I think is pretty solid, but I know it's not going to work. They need another guy, especially if they're trying to win now. And just for reference, too, we're going to be shouting out our guy Bobby Manning from CLNS Media, who broke a lot of this stuff down, that I'm just going to help make it a little bit digestible for the YouTubes. But so if this trade is going to happen, most likely a third team is going to have to be involved. And anytime we talk about a third team being involved, it's going to be the Brooklyn Nets, because they have assets and they have cap flexibility. So in this scenario, from Dallas would send PJ Washington and Caleb Martin to the Brooklyn Nets. Drew Holiday would go to the Dallas Mavericks, and then big boy Daniel Gafford would come over to the Celtics. Now, I like this for a lot of reasons. Daniel Gafford is a really good rim-running center, which doesn't make a ton of sense with the way the Celtics played offense this past season, but we saw him just thrive with guys like Luka. Even when Luka left, we still saw him put up pretty big numbers. Gafford is a starting caliber center. He's not going to bring a ton to you offensively, outside of the fact that he's going to dunk the hell out of the ball, but he is an incredible rim protector. He's a block machine. Gafford does make a ton of sense. And as we pointed out yesterday, if you assume Porzingis is most likely gone, and if you assume one of Luke or Al, whether Al retires or Luke gets a bigger payday somewhere else, you are going to need some front court depth. So a guy like Daniel Gafford makes a ton of sense. I honestly don't know if this would happen, only because I think Gafford is going to require some serious money at some point. I think he wants to get paid like a starting center. So I don't really know if that will be the case, but it'll be something to keep in mind. Another deal that we could see happening, which is still sending Gafford and Drew Holiday to those locations, as Boston and Dallas, and then the Brooklyn Nets in a different world, if they don't want to get a pick, could get PJ, Jaden Hardy, Dwight Powell, and Oliver Maxence Prosper. So again, not super sexy, not the most exciting deal in the world, but what I do like about this, I don't know if I have a fondness to guys like Drew and Porzingis because they won us, the Boston Celtics, an NBA championship. I just want Drew to go to a place where he can still compete, because some of these teams that we're going to point out in a little bit, maybe they won't compete. And so I like the idea of, Drew, go play playoff basketball. You belong playing basketball in April and May. Let's get him to a good spot. So that's the first spot. The second one is the Clippers. We shouted them out yesterday. Clippers have money problems as well. Not really, because they have the guy from Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, who just built a whole new arena. And then I don't know if you saw this story. Ballmer, when the Clippers played the Denver Nuggets, and I believe it was game 6. Was it game 6 or game 7? It might have been game 7. He flew just a group of fans on his private jet and then got them like really nice seats for game 7 in Denver. That guy will spend money. Take notes, Chisholm. Take notes. But the Clippers have some mid-tier salaries that we talked about yesterday that actually included in the Porzingis deal. So some of these are similar. And again, it's going to be a 3-team party, baby. So get ready, Brooklyn Nets. But in this deal, Drew Holiday goes to the Clippers. The Celtics get back Bogdan Bogdanovic, who, again, you know I like Bogey. We also get Derek Jones Jr. And then Drew Eubanks, the bank is open, would be going to the Brooklyn Nets again to make that salary work. So and this scenario makes a ton of sense for the Clippers, right? Because they would get to they'd get another all-star caliber. Well, I don't know if he's all-star right now. All defensive guard, right, to put aside next to James Harden, who I wouldn't call all defense. So now all of a sudden that starting 5 for the Clippers looks like Harden, Holiday. You got Norman Powell, Zubac, and Kawhi Leonard. That is a playoff 5. Now they're still going to have some real depth questions. I don't know if they're bringing back Ben Simmons, but for the Celtics, it gives them a little bit of depth. Not really the front court that you would like get with Daniel Gafford and Derek Jones Jr., but Derek Jones Jr., really good wing defender, which we're going to need as we're losing Tatum, decent rebounder, and another high flyer. And then Bogdan Bogdanovic, I know like didn't really thrive this postseason for the Clippers, but is a good bench presence, a good bench scorer, just kind of knows his role, and I think would fit in fine with the Boston Celtics. Good three-point shooter, can like do a little on-ball stuff too. And again, especially since you're going to be losing Drew Holiday and you don't have Tatum this year, you're losing guys who handle the ball. So I think this is a decent spot as well. Again, I don't know. They could also like move off of Derek Jones Jr. after he arrived. But again, that's like a nicer spot for Drew that I don't mind. Let's go down to the Southeast, if you will. We get the O-Town, Orlando Magic, or the Charlotte Hornets. So we'll start with the Hornets just to get this out of the way. This would just be straight up getting rid of some salary. That's why this would work, because the Hornets have some expiring salaries, and Yusuf Nurkic, the big man who, remember when the Suns traded DeAndre Ayton, and not only DeAndre Ayton, they also added Toumani Camara, the young, I think he was a rookie at a time, who just made all defensive team this year over Derek White for Yusuf Nurkic, who ended up just being awful for him. But Yusuf Nurkic is an expiring contract. So is Josh Okogie. And then the Hornets get a little bit of veteran leadership on a team that, like, I don't know, with the East being so bad, and if Lonzo Ball can stay on the court, and Miles Bridges, if he can stay out of trouble off the court, feel free to Google that and judge him. Along with Brandon Miller, right? Charlotte's going to have another good young pick, and it's also helping out our former assistant coach, Charles Lee, who is the head coach of the Charlotte Hornets. I don't know if Drew would be thrilled about that. And then Josh Okogie, again, like Okogie's like a fine guy that could come off the bench and play some defense. He's a really good defender. His offense leaves a lot to be desired. And the Hornets also have almost $45 million in space below the first apron. So they're also a potential destination for Holiday, and like Sam Hauser could be included in that if the Celtics were really, really trying to get off some money. So that is another spot that could make a little bit of sense. But I wanted to get to Orlando as well, because Orlando is so desperate for guards, as we saw in the postseason, right? Paolo and Franz were averaging almost 60 points per game combined in that postseason, in that first round against the Celtics, but they just have zero guard play. Drew we know he can hit the corner 3 pretty consistently at like a pretty high clip. We know he can also defend, so he'd make a ton of sense in that world of defensive nature that Orlando plays. And Orlando just, man, they have nobody that can shoot. They have Jalen Suggs, who they were missing. He'll come back from injury. He's a very streaky shooter. They still have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who I think they expected him to shoot a lot better than they did. So, like, KCP could make a ton of sense. But in this deal, Orlando would have to shed a lot of different pieces, right? Because Drew Holiday's a pretty big salary of $32 million this year, and then I think it's like 34 and 37 or something like that. So in this deal, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Gary Harris, so two like somewhat defensive guards who can sometimes shoot the three would come over to Boston. Orlando would get Drew Holiday, and then Brooklyn would also have to send out Goga Batadze, the big man, over to Brooklyn, and then Jett Howard over to Brooklyn. So the Brooklyn Nets again rearing their ugly head. And then Orlando, that's a pretty decent starting five. If they still have Wendell Carter Jr. at the five, which is like whatever, and then Paolo Franz, Jalen Suggs, Drew Holiday, that's scarier. That's a scarier team. But they don't have to, like, my big concern with them when they were talking about going to get somebody like Dame before his Achilles blew up. Also, if you guys didn't see this, it looked like Damian Lillard and Jason Tatum were hanging out together as they're both recovering from their Achilles tear. That like brought a tear to my heart. I don't know if you saw a tear to my heart. That actually sounds very dangerous. A tear to my eye, a tear to my heart. God, what's going on? But that was nice. That just made me feel good. I just want them both to be healthy. But adding somebody like Dame, they were talking about somebody like Trae Young, which when you're taking on a player like that, yes, that makes you so much more talented offensively, but then it opens you up defensively. Somebody like Drew gives you a little bit of a boost to shooting while not giving up too much, right? KCP and like sort of Gary and Goga are the only rotation guys. And then Brooklyn does this because they get to take a shot on Jett Howard, who's a young guy that hasn't been getting too much playing time, but has shown a little bit of love. So I don't know how likely that one is, but I do like that a little bit more than, say, what we were, like what you're seeing for Charlotte. I would just feel bad in my heart if we sent him to Charlotte, you know? The last spot, though, this one is a little bit more exciting, only because I like the idea of getting back a piece that, like, can actually play for you now, right? Where a lot of these guys were just doing this for the money, honey. I'm so sorry. We're just doing it for the money, though, right? And in this scenario, like DeMar DeRozan, if he's included in this trade, he actually helps you out a little bit. He does. So I think DeRozan, and we already know that Drew Holiday has drawn some interest, from the Sacramento Kings, that they've been trying to get him for a little bit. And they don't, after they traded De'Aaron Fox, they didn't really go grab a point guard, right? They just had Malik Monk, who I'm like, listen, Malik Monk's game is nice. He's a great scorer. He is not a point guard, though. Like, he should be a sixth man of the year almost every year. And they don't have one now. And the Kings are clearly in win now mode, right? Because they did bring on DeRozan, Zach LaVine. They still have Sabonis there. They're going to have to pay their young guy Keegan Murray at some point. Keon Ellis is a restricted free agent. So I think somebody like, and again, a three-team deal could probably be explored here, but somebody like Drew Holiday for DeMar DeRozan is kind of interesting, I think. Because I do think DeRozan, he can rebound a little bit. We know he's more of a mid-range game guy who has added a little bit of a three-point shot. I just like the idea of getting a piece that can allow the Celtics to be competitive, because the deeper into this postseason, this offseason that we get, should be the postseason, I'm so sad, but the deeper into the offseason we get, the more I'm leaning into, I want this Celtics team to compete still. Just because of how bad the East is. You're seeing, like, the Pacers, shouts to them. They just took a 3-1 lead. If you missed it last night, Tyrese Halliburton with an insane game. But it just reminded me how, like, flawed the Eastern Conference is. I know we've mentioned it before, but, like, are you really trusting the 76ers coming back? Like, is Joel Embiid actually going to play more than 45 games this year? Is Paul George going to do more podcast episodes or more games played? Are the Cleveland Cavaliers going to run it back? Is anybody actually scared of the Cavs after they got bounced in the second round? The Knicks seem super flawed, right? Like, are they going to have the same roster next season? Is Giannis going to be on the Bucks? Like, there's just a lot of versions of this Celtics team, which, again, they won't be title favorites. They won't even be favorites to come out of the East, but I could see them finishing anywhere between, like, 3 and 6. And I don't know. I just want to try. I don't want to be a tanking team. I don't have Danny Ainge in my heart. All right, I don't. So I like the idea of getting somebody back like DeRozan, who, again, I think he only has 1 or 2 years left on this contract. So it's not like you're signing on for this money forever. The Celtics would still have to make a bunch of other moves, I think, if they did something like that versus all the expiring money that they were looking at. So, I don't know. There's a long way to go. Again, similar to yesterday, none of these deals are like, ooh, this is awesome for Boston. It's not fun speculating on trades that just are like, let's make sure we save a little money. No, I want to win basketball games, man. I don't want to be doing these videos in the offseason. I want it to still be the postseason right now. That's the only thing I could think of. The Celtics choking away those first 2 games and then watching how the rest of the postseason is played off. It's just like, man, I do think they would be better than this Pacers team. And then I think they're the only team that could actually hang tight with this Oklahoma City Thunder squad, who is just rolling through the West right now. But that's going to do it. So once again, Drew Holiday, if you saw this, peace and love. I hope you stay in Boston forever. I hope you make Bill Chisholm go broke. But I'm sorry for sending you to other locations. But Drew, let me know in the comments, where would you like to go? Appreciate everybody tuning in and watching Celtics Daily. We'll be back again tomorrow, almost every single day. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe on your way out, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know the next time I try to send a Celtics player to a new location. Thanks for watching.